Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending. My name is Mark Torgeson. I'm the Sales and Marketing Director for Implementation Specialists, and I'll be the host for today's webinar, Prepare to Move, GP to Business Central. I'm joined by our President, Deb Sletmoen, and our Vice President, Cheryl Simmons, as well.
Hi, guys. Hello, welcome, everyone.
So here's our agenda. Since introductions are complete, next we'll start out with who we are and discuss the benefits of cloud migration and the Microsoft Cloud in general. I'll be doing that part. Deb and Cheryl will discuss how to prepare and plan for your cloud move. Our goal is to provide insights to help you with planning, help set realistic expectations, and avoid unnecessary surprises down the road. We won't be showing any product today, but our sales team will follow up with each of you to ask if you're interested in seeing and learning more. We will have time for Q&A at the end of the presentation, so please type in your questions as they come to mind. So here's a little bit about us. We are celebrating our 20th anniversary this year, so that's 20 years of implementing and supporting Microsoft Dynamics. We are a Microsoft solutions partner for business applications. Our development, migration, implementation, training and support teams are all US based, and we are extremely customer focused, so much so that some of our customers consider us friends. So this is probably why most of us are here today on this webinar. Microsoft has finally announced a GP retirement date. I'm sure you've seen this before. And then that date is December 31st, 2029. That date will be the end of product support, product enhancements, and regulatory updates, including payroll. Then the security updates end in December of 2031. So the main message here is don't wait to the last minute if you're planning to migrate over to the cloud. We are already halfway through 2025, and there are a lot of companies on Dynamics GP that are considering a move. Will GP work after these dates? The short answer is yes, but there will be some risk with the end of support, which means we all need to be considering what the future looks like. And the future is cloud-based. So why are companies migrating to the cloud? Access to the latest version of software like Business Central. For example, Microsoft releases 2 updates a year. The good news is that you decide when to push those updates into production. No more on-premise server management, so that headache goes away. It works seamlessly with other Microsoft products like Excel and Power Platform. There's enhanced Microsoft Cloud security. I'll touch on that a little bit more in a minute. Improved reliability and scalability, so the solution will grow with your business. Works on any device, and you can access robust analytics and data visualizations as part of that cloud platform, and it allows you to future-proof your business with the latest AI and product innovations. So Dynamics 365 Business Central is a connected business management solution. Connected means you can bring together your finance, sales, services, and operations teams within a single, easy-to-use application to get the insights needed to drive your business forward and be prepared for what's next. But that's not all. So no other vendor brings the breadth of the Microsoft Cloud. So customers can start with what they need today and adapt as they grow. It works seamlessly with Microsoft 365 applications like Excel and Outlook, along with Power Platform for robust reporting and workflow management. Also, Business Central runs on the Microsoft Azure Cloud Platform, which means you benefit from state-of-the-art security across physical data centers, infrastructure, and operations, with security features like multi-factor authentication, data encryption, regulatory compliance, and more. So you also benefit from a team of more than 3,500 global cybersecurity experts that work together to help safeguard your business assets and data in Azure. So that's my quick introduction to the Microsoft Cloud. Next, I'll turn it over to Cheryl and Deb to walk us through how to prepare and plan for a move to the cloud. Specifically, they'll be covering requirements, investments around licensing and implementation migration, timelines, legacy data, and training options. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Cheryl.
All right, thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. Start out, we'll talk about requirements. And this is the time of when you say, hey, I'm looking to move off of GP and go to Business Central, a new ERP to you. It's the time to look back and say, okay, what do we really need moving forward, right? So what can we not live without of? Those are what I call the must-haves. And as well as a time for reflecting on who would be the key players on your team that will help drive this initiative forward for you. And for some of you, smaller company, right, I get it. You're like, okay, there only is the 5 of us. Yep, we're all in it together. Where if you're in a larger organization and you may have 20 plus people using the system, right, who are those key players that you can count on to help, redefine processes, drive things forward, really think maybe out of the box of what do we really need to be successful today, but also in 5 years. Right, so really not just going, this is how it works in GP, but how do I want it to work moving forward? What functionality do I really think is key? And what data do I need to make sure I'm being successful as a business? And you may have had this information the last time around when you were implementing your GP, and you may not. So you may be starting from scratch, or some of you may have a list that you had created the last time around that you picked Dynamics GP for an implementation. The other piece I'm just going to throw out that really you want to take a look at and document is, your chart of accounts. Really dig into that and say, okay, do we have what we need for the breakout for the chart of accounts? And there are some differences as you go over to Business Central with, taking what you might call department today, and that's going to become a segment for you. But is your main segments of your accounts what you need, or do you need more division or less division than you have today? Kind of analyzing that as well, because as you consider going to a new product, right? Perfect time to make those changes, because we'll map the differences from your old system to your new system and make sure that we get all of your data brought over properly. So really give that some thought, because I'll be honest, if you make those decisions up front, it makes it much easier than if you make them 3/4 of the way through the implementation and you decide you want to change things up. Makes it a little more challenging. It takes a little more time. So take that forethought right up front and decide what's most important for you when it comes to those requirements. The next slide, if you want to hop to that.
And I think, Cheryl, when you talk about the requirements too, I think a big part there is that the implementation team is there to help and guide all the way through that, right? So when you're thinking, oh, how do I start? Remember, we'll have the team assigned that will help and guide you through that process. So absolutely.
Yep.
So, okay, good job, Mark. Good job. And Cheryl, I'm up next on investment. You ready?
Yeah.
So when we talk about requirements on the last slide, users and how you dealt with users inside of GP was very different. They were concurrent. So I could set up 20 users and I could have people share and I could have a 10 concurrent system. But when we move over to Business Central, just like your Office and your CRM, they're going to be named seats inside of Business Central, meaning there's not going to be that shared capability. The pricing here is very different compared to what you experienced with GP in the past. So for an essential license, which I'll tell you a little bit more about the essential products and what's included, that's a $70 per user per month license, okay? And like I said, they're a named seat. So one of the requirements is making sure you understand how many people are really in system today that are actually doing work transactional versus something like potentially a viewer type license, which would be more over on the team member side. So if they're just a viewer, let's say, and not transactional, they may be able to get by with $8 per month per year. At the same time, if you need some other modules like service or manufacturing, that is an inclusive $100 per user per month. And again, all based on that named seat license, okay? I think a big part of this all is really understanding what users you have in the system today and understanding what products you need. When it comes to overall promotions, we've got some good promotions going on right now. One, of course, is Bridge to the Cloud. Bridge to the Cloud allows you a 40% discount, but the biggest part for me on the Bridge to the Cloud, besides the discount, is that we do have the dual license, meaning you can use your GP for the next 3 years and you can use your BC. So you can really step yourself into BC and not pay your GP renewal. You'll pay your BC licenses up to your GP renewal. It has to be that minimum amount. And our sales team does a great job on that overall promotion and helping explain that to you. That promo, I will tell you, does end at the end of December. The prices themselves will have an increase at beginning of October, and we are slated right now to go up an additional $10 per month per user. So a $70 license is going to $80. If you're a nonprofit and you have nonprofit status with the rest of your office licensing, just know that the pricing for Business Central is $28 right now per license, which is a huge savings for our nonprofits. There's other things, of course, to consider when you're talking about your investment, right? So today you pay an annual renewal with GP and have probably lots of add-ons, right? Whether it be E1, some of your smart builder, some of those things, maybe some McCorma. Some of those pieces you may or may not need. Those are part of the things that we go through on the discovery side, and we find out MICR check printing is included inside of Business Central. So you may not need your McCorma depending upon your signature rules and your check printing rules. So there's things that we want to find out if we still need them. Of course, those products are both available inside of BC, just like they are in GP, and they're ready, and some customers will need them and use them. But let's take McCorma, for example, with the MICR check front printing. If that's the only piece that you're using your McCorma for, you may not need that as you move over to BC. Okay, and we have more promos, more pieces coming, and I think we're getting to those, Mark, as we switch slides here. So let's go one more slide, and let's talk about some of the things that are included inside of the base Business Central. So if you take a look on the overall, you can see it's tiers of information coming at you. So of course, all of the pieces in the very top tier, finance and accounting. Of course, GL, fixed assets, your cash flow forecast, all of your banking, EFTs, positive pays, all of those, check writing, so huge, all included in your base piece, okay? Then we move down into your sales and marketing, sales and delivery, purchasing. All of the pieces you see in that second tier are also included in your base BC Essential license. We go one more tier down into inventory, supply planning, and availability, and then project management. Again, all of those are included, okay? That bottom layer is where we are seeing what is included in that $100 license, that premium license, your service, your manufacturing, your warehouse management. Those are what's over on that $100 tier. So some of you may say, I'm not planning on doing manufacturing, don't need the enhanced warehousing or the service, so I'm fine with the $70 license. And as you go through demos, they'll help you with that. They'll help you understand that. But don't forget about things like your Power BI. You may want some licensing for that. You may want to investigate more on CRM and understand what else I can do with Dynamics 365, the sales professional, the CRM capabilities, on top of Business Central, and really get some great pricing as far as overall license costs. Okay, Okay, Mark, we're on to our Kickstart slide. Awesome, thank you. So guys, one thing that we've done for our customers and we found really helps get people excited and motivated is we went to what's going to help customers get this done. So we've added an additional incentive on top of all the other promos that you can take. And that incentive is what we call our Kickstart package. It's exactly what it says, Kickstart. It's going to get you started. It's not only going to give you a $5,000 migration credit, meaning we're going to help migrate your data over, and there is a migration path all ready to go. We're going to give you $5,000 towards that, which that is going to give you migrated data to do your testing and your training and all of your UAT types of things on your exact data. At the same time, it's going to be, again, dollars that you're going to use towards your final migration, okay, up to that $5,000 credit. We also give you some additional incentives. We give you a $5,000 WS Tools credit. Some of you may say, oh, if we had PM on apply on GP, our payables team would be able to focus so much time on BC if they weren't trying to finagle these credits all the time, right? So you could use that $5,000 credit towards existing GP tools that you've always wanted, or on BC tools as well, because we have some BC tools out as well. We also, the big piece is we include a 2-day hands-on BC training. There is one coming up in July, and users can come into that and they can sit in that classroom away from their phones, away from their desk, sit and just focus and immerse inside of all the Business Central things to come and learn about all the modules and kickstart that training. There's a few things with it. We do require 5 user annual license for BC to sign up for that program. So if that's something you guys are interested in, let us know. We ran a few of these already this past year and have had great success with them as well. Okay. Okay, Mark, on to our next slide. Oh, and I think we're back to Cheryl with this one. So Cheryl, I'm handing it back to you.
All right, sounds good. Implementation, and this is, taking us all the way from the start, the discovery, and walking through those requirements, right? That your team has taken the time to write down and say, yep, we got to have these. These are nice to have if we can get these type of things, and understand how you use GP today, as well as how you want to use Business Central moving forward. That's what we talk about in those discovery sessions. And we're talking we're going to go through every module, talk about users, how they're set up, everything like that. And again, we want to make sure that we get your test sandbox set up to be how you're wanting to use the system moving forward. And so that's why that discovery part's very important. And again, there might be things where you're like, I'm not sure. I want to see how it works in Business Central. And that's okay too, right? We just make a circle around those of let's set them up, turn them on, see if you want to do that. And then you can make your decisions as you're going through this process. And I know for some, implementation was many years ago, right? That you may have done your Dynamics GP implementation, or even you may have migrated even from, the DOS version, the GP version as well. And so this is just a high level kind of a little checklist of what all we will go through as we do an implementation. I'll hit on some highlights because each one of these we could spend, a good 10+ minutes on. And I know Deb and Mark won't let me talk that much longer on all of these. But yeah, if you want to get into more of the nitty-gritty on any of these, certainly reach out to us. But let's talk some highlights though. So discovery, we talked about that one. Data migration, right? You have data in Dynamics GP today. One of the questions is, can I take all of it, or do I want to take all of it? And the answer is no. No, I'm just kidding. Again, having that conversation, because it's how many years do you have inside of GP, right? Some of you have 15+ years in Dynamics GP, right? That you have a lot of data where it's like, I don't need all this, and yep, I probably need 7 years, but even that of how much do I really want to take over to BC? Most people say I need my current open payables, my open receivables, and probably a year or two of GL, some of those kind of things. Like, think that through, and we'll work with you to bring that data from GP into BC. And again, if you're changing your chart of accounts, we'll map it so it comes over into the new chart of accounts that you're going to use over in Business Central, and you'll be off and running in your test sandbox. As well as, then we'll migrate that to production when you're ready to go live as well. Configuration, what that means on the Business Central side is your setup options, right? All the setup options that you have in GP, you'll have some similar setup options in Business Central, whether that's like your posting groups, which, like setting up posting accounts in GP, your payment terms, getting your numbering systems, posting journals, all of those type of things of how do you want them numbered, sequential, those type of things. That's what we consider configuration. And some of it's done automatically through the migration, but yet you still have the capability to change that if you want it to work differently going forward. Training, very, very important. We want each and every one of you to be comfortable as you go through this stage to understand how to do things in Business Central, because you're probably a pro at running your payables. I know how to get my invoices in. I know how to print checks. I know how to do my aging, my reconciliations for bank rec. You know how to do all those things in GP today. And so you're just like, where do I go at BC, right? You have that knowledge that it takes of, I know what I need to do, just where do I need to go is a lot of what we cover inside of that training component. And making sure that you're comfortable with, okay, here's how you did it on GP, here's how you do it in BC. And we do a lot of those comparisons and kind of talking through, okay, what are you looking for? What would you call it on GP? Okay, that's where we're going to find it over here in BC under this menu. So training, again, very important, and everybody wants to have that training. We record that training as well, so you can refer back to it. And we'll talk about training a little bit more here on the next couple of slides. Report creations, we get into creating financial statements, as well as, in that requirement stage, I said, what data do you need to get at? That includes this report creation here as well. And it might be not a report anymore. It might be a dashboard. It might just be the statistics listed on the right side of your screen. I know Deb loves the views inside of analysis views inside of BC as well, right? There's all kinds of options in there for reports or to be able to view data all at your fingertips. So lots of options there. User acceptance testing, we go through that process. And again, from the training to user acceptance, making sure that you feel comfortable with the new process and saying, yep, I'm ready to go. Because the next step is moving us out over into that go live state into production. And all of this, of course, you have a project manager and an implementation team with you through every step here. The other piece that may come into play for each of you is if you need an extension or anything like that, that comes into play for those third parties. And as Deb talked earlier, maybe you don't need those third parties anymore because the functionality in Business Central is enough to move you forward and don't need to use 10 ISVs that you had currently on Dynamics GP. So again, we'll talk about all of that through that discovery process as well. Like I said, could go on and on, right? But let's go to the next slide. Talk about timelines. And you're thinking, okay, how long does it take to do all of that I just talked about? And there's lots of things to consider even as you're thinking, when do I want to do the move to Business Central, right? So first off, you've made the investment into Dynamics GP, and you're like, okay, I paid for this, I'm using this. Are you going to stay another year or two? And again, that's unique to each of you as you look at your organization of how long do you want to stay on GP. If you want to talk that through with us, like we said, the sales team's here for that conversation. Deb and I are here to have that conversation because there's a lot of things that come into play. One being payroll. So there is not a payroll system inside of Business Central. And so as you look at, okay, I'm thinking I'm going to move in the next year and a half, what you could do is take a look at payroll that you're using today in GP and saying, okay, I'm going to transition this first to, there's third-party options, right? ISVs that we can use, Green Shades, Integrity Data, whoever it might be, that you say, I'm going to do that now, because that part will be done, and both of those ISVs work with GP and with Business Central. So again, it'll be less of a lift when I go to move the rest of my system. So taking a look at, what third parties do you use? When will those be ready to go if you still need them moving forward? All of that comes into play, deciding when you as an organization can go, as well as how long would it take you to do an implementation. There isn't a magic button to say, for all of you, it takes 45 days. And I just made up 45 days. Don't go home with that. Nobody write that one down. It's really, for some people, a couple months, they can get through the process, from the testing perspective. And so overall, in 3-4 months, they can be live. For some of you, it's going to take 6 months, 9 months. I mean, it's going to take many months to get through the whole process. Again, depending on the functionality that you use in GP today and what extensions you're going to be using on Business Central, customizations, any of those type of things that you need certainly could come into play into that timeline. But also, I know Deb talked about promotions earlier, so I just want to put that back out there, and I'll let her talk about more of that too. Jump in, Deb.
Yep, I will. Absolutely. Great job, Cheryl. The big thing about the promos, guys, is that the Bridge to the Cloud, the 40% off, does end at the end of December. They have not told us what we are getting for upcoming promotions. Okay, they have told us to get customers moving, help them make the decision, and we can do the license today, especially if the Bridge to the Cloud is an exciting one. And remember, the Bridge to the Cloud is 40% off, and it's a dual license, meaning you use your GP, you can do all of your updates, you can keep running your payroll, get all your payroll taxes, and you have your BC licenses, all for the same price for the next 3 years. Now, the hope is that you get across in the 3 years. And definitely, as we're talking about timelines, there may be better times for you to move than moving in this next 3 months or 6 months, right? But you want to take advantage of that promotion. And really the good news is we can get you started on the path. We can get your BC licenses purchased and get you on Bridge to the Cloud at any time. And then you implement, you figure out project timeline, and you get on calendars. That is the biggest thing right now. Lock in your 40% off. Microsoft has told us we won't see another 40, which I'm kind of sad about, because 40% off is a good price tag, right? When you think about locking that in. At the same time, timeframes. You may say, I can't go this next 6, we're running into busy season, I want to go next March. Again, same thing. You've got 3 years to be on that dual license, right? And being able to say, hey, I can now go at my time frame. I have a plan. I know when I'm going to start working towards this and getting my project team out of the holidays and out of everything else, and looking at things like payroll, right? If I can get payroll moved when it works the best to move payroll. And for some of you, it may not be Q4. It may not be Q1, right? When should I move payroll? Let's get you talking to our payroll people right now. Let's talk to Green Shades. Let's talk to Integrity. The great thing about Green Shades, I would tell you right now, they are not charging for implementation. It's built in. It is built into their price. There's no additional charge. You pay your license fee per employee, and you're getting all of your payroll pieces, and it's going to integrate into your GP and into your BC. Okay, so again, you can be moving pieces as it makes sense for you to move. Okay, Cheryl, did I miss anything on that? Sorry.
Nope, that was good. The other thing, I'll point this out real quick, is making sure your team has time. Like you said, that busy season, like if they're not going to have time to do their testing and training, it's probably not a good time to go, because we really need investment from your organization as they go through this process. So making sure that, like you said, the right time is appropriate. I think we're ready for the next one.
Okay, so we're talking legacy data. So this is kind of a big deal. We have a lot of payroll, so a lot of you have payroll, right? So really things about, what do I do with my current GP, right? It's running on the server in the back, in the server room, and it can sit there and it can run as long as your hardware supports it. Is this the best time for us to consider moving more cloud-based, right? Starting to move more servers up to Azure, moving those both for historical data purposes and moving them again for other reasons, safety, security, right? You have hardware that's on its, expiration for warranty. Is it a good time, right? You know, us here, local, right? We just had some horrific storms, lots of damage everywhere. And we had servers. Me and Cheryl came into work one morning and our servers were down because our battery backups had not held overnight when we had a pretty large power outage. So again, not having to worry about getting Exchange up every day, I will tell you, is one of my favorite things about Office. And as you move more towards that complete cloud adoption, having those worries on someone else's shoulders, I can tell you that's priceless for me. Other things about data, legacy data, right? And Cheryl's got in here the cleanup, the multi-vendors, customers. Cheryl, I think you're gonna talk about that one again as we get towards the end of this. So I'm gonna leave that one back to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Start thinking about your chart of accounts. The dimension piece, I really want people to understand that segments move to dimensions, and it is incredible when you start seeing the transformation of your chart, when you're not like, I really want to add a new segment, but I don't want 5 million more accounts in my general ledger. When you start to see the power of what dimensions can do and how you basically have so many choices and not always having to key -000 -00 because somebody needed another segment, but we're only using it for these 3 accounts. You won't do that with dimensions. You will love that. Okay, so that's exciting, and it's exciting to start to see people start having those realizations of like, oh, this is what I've always wanted to do with my chart. Okay. So as you're starting to move and starting to think about the move, starting to think about your data, starting to put some easy cleanups, that's where our GP consulting team can come in as well. They can help do some transformations on data, some vendor cleanup, some vendor combining and customer combining. So those things definitely start today. Those of you with payroll, I want to make sure that everybody understands this. As we migrate your data is going to migrate over into BC, right? You're going to have great data, historical views. Payroll, though, is going to be sitting still in your GP. And those of you that have payroll in-house, think about this. You're moving your BC GP to BC, but the payroll data is not going to move in. So we need to really make sure that we're safeguarding that, we're storing it, we're securing it, because we are going to need those historical records for many years in the future. So kind of keep that in mind as somebody's like, yeah, you don't need that anymore. We'll move it all. That payroll data is going to be something you're going to want to make sure of. Now, I'm sure all of you guys are paper junkies as well, just like me. So you're going to have your paper packets to go back to, but I'm going to still make sure that all of our payroll data is secured for that 7-year time frame as well. Cheryl, I know you want to talk more about cleanup because cleanup was one of your big ones on vendors and customers and overall. You want to talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, one other thing I'm just going to throw out too is, up to Azure, there's, we can also move data up to data lakes. We can also just do reporting. There's reporting tools that can bring together your GP and BC data together. So like I said, you don't have to take it all, you don't have to migrate it all over to Business Central. There's still options for reporting to bring that data together into one report. Through, E1 has options, etc. So just any options that you want to look at, have that conversation with us and we can kind of tell you the pros and cons of each of those. So definitely options. Keep that out. Keep that out there, I'll say. Data cleanup, yes. I'll be honest, the sooner you can start your data cleanup, the better. That's one of those things of, can you start something today? Even like you said, even though I'm not ready to go for at least 6 months, yes, today you can start looking at your data and validating if there's things that you need to change. For example, if you have used your phone number fields for something different than true phone numbers, especially if it's got alpha characters in it, we're going to have problems migrating your data. So again, that's something you can look at today, a quick smart list and say, okay, my phone numbers, yep, we've used them for field X, right? And we can take that data and move it to a different field so you still have it and get your phone number field back to being really phone numbers. Then your data migration will go much smoother. Same for email addresses. Just again, as another example, if you've used those fields for something else and they're not in a email address format, the migration will fail because of those fields, right? We're going to, and again, contacts, so cleaning up your contacts. Customers and vendors are, if you have some that, yep, they really need to get merged, let's get them merged on GP. So when we bring them over to Business Central, all data is coming over together to start with. National accounts as an example. So there isn't a national accounts in Business Central out of the box. It is available, as an extension. And so looking at your customers and vendors of, okay, so do I need to combine them today? Would that make more sense? Or do they need to be just locations under different vendors and customers, those type of things? And again, we can have these conversations if you're ready to start looking at your data, cleaning up payment terms, whatever it is. We can assist with that as well. So lots of things that you could start doing today to get you ready to have your data for the migration. Let's jump over to training. So training, a big advocate for training, and love that we get to go through this process with you. But understanding your users in your office, how they learn best, because not everybody wants to be sat down in front of a computer and kind of told, go, right? Some people they want to be able to read about it. Some people want to do their own online learning themselves. So understanding how your users will learn best, as well as, like I said, having that advocate that is really saying, okay, this is what we're going to do for our new process, because there are changes, right? It's not the same as GP. And so understanding how that's going to impact your process and educating your users of how to do things differently. And, we can come on site and have a small group training. We can do virtual training. Train the trainer approach would be more of that. We train your key players, and your key players help educate your additional users that you have at the sites. That's where, again, lots of different options that we can get into there. The other piece too is, as part of the training, I mentioned earlier, kind of that user acceptance testing as well, of making sure that you dedicate your time and feel comfortable moving to the new system. We don't want to rush you either. And so just making sure that all of that comes into play as far as your implementation. And Deb, I think you were going to talk more about that as well.
Well, we started off talking about, overall, the team is going to be here to help as you transition, right? The implementation team, the IS team, to be able to help. We understand the GP side and the BC side. We understand when you say, I can't have duplicate numbers in my AP, right? In my accounts payable, that makes perfect sense. I can picture the message coming up. I can tell you exactly where to set it in GP, but in Business Central, having that same understanding of what you expect and what you want out of your system. Now, I don't want you to make everything just like you have it in GP, because that won't give you the benefits of what Business Central does for you today. But I do want you to have the same safeguards, right? I want you to have the ability to say, I can't have two AP people putting in the same doc number and not have the system signal me, okay? Those are the things that we're ready for. We're ready to help you as you transition. I will tell you, as someone that knows both systems, the best part and the fun part for me is to show you how you would do it before and how you're going to do it, and really watch a lot of the light bulbs, because I think BC, because of its streamlined approach to everything, is a much faster learn. You're not navigating, you're not driving everywhere. You're like, okay, I need to find my window, I find my window, I find my line, and away I go. Everything typically is laid out right in front of you, and it is such a nice experience for our users as they go through training. So lots of things to look forward to. You're not going it alone. You're going to start off with hopefully a kickstart, getting everybody into kickstart, getting people ready to go as far as getting you in front of your own data, right? We have that July kickstart coming up. If you're interested in that July kickstart in Fargo, I will tell you, we try to keep those to like 15 and under total attendees, so it's not so overwhelming for our presenters. But at the same time, we can break it into two into July if we need to. So there's room, is what I'm telling you, if you want to get your team into that free 2-day training in Fargo. So not a bad hike for some, but at the same time, I think what you'll see, especially if we can get your data pushed in between now and that kickstart, your users will be training They will be seeing their vendors. They'll be seeing customers. They'll be seeing that data that makes sense to them. And that to me is the biggest hurdle, not trying to train and learn on things that aren't their own pieces of information. Okay. Okay, so let's jump. Cheryl, if you're ready, let's just do a quick recap of all the things that we talked about in this last 40 minutes, and we're almost on time. Mark's going to scold us, but we're almost on time. But we talked about requirements. We talked about an investment, right? Because it's implementation. It's a move. It is training, right? We talked about the timelines and the when, right? We talked about, you know, what we have to do with legacy data, because I do not want anybody coming to me in a year or 2 years saying, I'm undergoing this type of thing. And you all know we have things, all right? A 401k audit, something where they're saying, I need more data than I thought I had in my payroll packets. You want to make sure that you have that ability to have that legacy data, whether it's Azure or on your same servers. And then talk about those training options, those training pieces that really make the difference, right? Because I can migrate your data for you tomorrow and I can say, here you go. We've got you all done. Let me know if you need us. That is never the approach that we'll take here at IS. We will do these hand in hand, right? As we've done everything for the last 20 years, a trusted partner do all. But when it comes to getting it migrated and getting it done right, that investment is real. It needs time, it needs attention from the IS team, and it needs attention from your team. And just so you guys know, we're here to help. Okay, I know that was 2 more minutes I'm supposed to do, so sorry. On to Mark, questions.
Questions, yes, I do have a few questions. First one, can we access our old GP data, that is the data we didn't migrate, after we move to Business Central?
Absolutely, you can access as long as you still have access to the server. If we moved it to a cloud base, you will have access to that. The licensing itself does, if you are on an on-premise type license, which most of you are, even though you won't be paying your GP renewal, you'll be paying your BC licenses, that GP data will still be available to you, okay? Now, let's say you decide you're not gonna pay your E1 PopDoc SmartList Builder anymore. You will not have access to some of your SmartList Builder type reports if you discontinue things like that, okay? So let's just make sure what types of data you want, but your GP data itself will be fine, okay?
Thank you. And then the second question is around BC Kickstart. So regarding the $5,000 migration credit, we have several companies. Would the credit be applied to each company or off the total of all of them?
Great question, Mark. So the $5,000 credit that's included with Kickstart, there are some requirements, right? So we need a 5-user annual license to be able to qualify you for a Kickstart that gives you the 2-day training, the credit towards tools, and then the migration credit. That migration credit is applied at the end of implementation, okay? And that is a total one-time $5,000 price tag. So Mark, you are a creative, absolute awesome GP user. You decide you're going to migrate 2 more times besides just our regular, test and then final. You decide you're going to do a couple more because you really like dimensions and you like what you can do and you're like, I want to see how it looks this way and I want to see how it looks this way, right? Well, absolutely perfect. We can do it as many times. The credit itself is $5,000 total. Okay, so kind of keep in mind that if you go to $10,000 in migration, that credit will just be applied to the account. Okay.
Great, that's it for the questions. Thank you. Just a couple more items here before we close out. So we do host several GP, BC, Wensoft, and other ISV webinars each month like this one. So here are a few of the upcoming webinars. On the BC side, we're going to cover the project management module on July 31st and the service management module on August 19th. And then our next GP webinar is August 5th, and we'll be covering the purchase module, routines and utilities. So please join us for those webinars as well. Our biggest learning and networking opportunity for customers, though, is our GPUC user conference, which will be held again this year on November 16th through the 21st at the Microsoft campus. So we'll have over 100 educational sessions focus on extending the value of your GP or BC investment, along with some Power Platform and Copilot AI sessions as well. It's a great event, so please consider joining us. And if you have any questions, need any help, please contact us using either support@iscorp.biz or sales@iscorp.biz, and we will be happy to help you out. And with that, thank you very much for attending. A follow-up email with a link to the webinar recording will be sent out at the end of the presentation. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.